It's time for a brand new series of StarCraft 2 on a brand new multiplayer balance patch. But in game number 1, we find ourselves on a very old map. It is called King's Cove, and spawning right here in the bottom right hand corner in game number 1 of this best of 5 series. Playing with the red Protoss probes, we have none other than MaxPax. I don't think anybody is surprised to learn that these two made it to the very first tournament finals, literally just like an hour after the new patch went live, with the blue Zerg pieces. In the opposite corner of the map, we're looking at none other than SHIN's main hatchery. This is one of the maps that we had way back in the day in StarCraft 2, and for some reason, and at this point I don't really know exactly why, for some reason it has once more made a return. So this was a popular map back in 2019, which I know you're thinking is about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. It's been a little bit, okay, since 2019. It got introduced in January of 2019, and we played on it until, well, August of that same year. So it was around for a little while. I remember watching a bunch of games on it. If I'm not mistaken, this is a map as well where, for some reason, the games that come to mind are the laser Hydralisk timing attacks. At least I'm pretty sure I'm not confusing any of it, but this map apparently, looking at the statistics, at least back in the day, had a win rate that was a small advantage for Zerg in this matchup of 51%. So I have to find out exactly how these sort of maps play out with the new multiplayer balance patch, and obviously since 2019 the game has gone through a lot of changes. But it is sort of cool to see some of these old maps once again being used for the ladder, albeit, yeah, seemingly random ones. So with the new patch, we also have Neon Violet and then also Abyssal Reef back in the map pool. And then 6 brand new ones that I've already been casting from the StarCraft 2 PTR. So this is a series with all of the changes finalized, and well, I'm excited to find out exactly what this matchup now looks like. I have a couple of concerns. First off, I'm a little bit concerned that late game is very difficult for Zerg. Now that the Mama ship is no longer abductable, I've got a feeling a lot of Zerg players will desperately try to end the game before it ever goes the distance. Because if Zerg is behind going into the late game, I'm honestly not entirely sure what you would do to try and come back. We'll have to find out. Obviously, MaxPax rarely falls behind, so if we do get any long games in the series, we will, well, we'll learn the hard way. Obviously, though, you gotta take some of these results here as well with a grain of salt, because there's a very good chance that the players are still messing around a little bit. They're trying to find their ways. There's a good shot as well that MaxPax and SHIN are playing, like, either their first game on this map, or maybe their first games in, like, 6-7 years. Okay, maybe it's not been that long. Maybe 5 years is a bit more accurate, but you get what I'm trying to say. It takes a while to get used to all of the changes, albeit relatively minor ones, right? Like, even though the changes are relatively small, and we've already had the PTR, and players have already been able to experiment, there's still a lot more than, yeah, you would first think about. Like, all of the changes, for example, to the cost of the queen and the cost of the hatchery, and then that new energy ability that can be used as well on an oracle, for example, or maybe you can go for, like, a quick sentry build. There's a lot of opportunities, and it's going to require a lot of experimentation. Now, we do have a super quick third Nexus here from MaxPax. This is like 3.5 minutes, no second gateway, only 2 gateway units here in total. It means that this base is currently very vulnerable, but I don't know if this is enough Zerglings to really do anything about it. Maybe. Second Oracle is going to be coming out in just a little while. I've got a feeling this will be defendable. You could actually wall in this Adept altogether. If you, like, put a pylon in front of its face, you could probably wall in the Adept altogether and keep it relatively safe. I wonder if Max should have kept that first Oracle at home. Either way, it looks like the Nexus is gonna survive, even though that Adept will not. A very greedy start here for Max, but it looks like he's gonna be able to get away with it. Okay. These two, by the way, have been playing in everything. MaxPax always plays in everything. He's been doing so for a long time. Like, when it comes to online tournaments, he's been signing up for everything. SHIN, likewise, over the last 2 months or so, has also just been playing in every single online cup. Normally, we have players like Björn signing up. We have players like, well, for example, Clem. He plays in it. Like, there's a bunch of players that play in most online cups, but it seems like SHIN and MaxPax are just always there, no matter the situation. So this map, by the way, features a very easy to take third base. All of this is a flat area and then 2 giant ramps leading down to the playables, like the playable section of the low ground. Fourth base can be taken over here if you're Protoss. You could also opt for the one over here. If I'm not mistaken, back when this map was first introduced, a lot of players would take the base in the center, because seemingly it looks a little bit easier, but players very quickly shifted, taking the less exposed base over on the left side instead. And we already see that here in the mirrored location on the other side, as SHIN is going into a relatively quick +1 melee. And now he's also gone for a lair. In the meantime, the first upgrade for MaxPax out of the Twilight Council is going to be Charge. Charge and +1 here. It means that the Zealots he will be producing, together with Archons, the Zealots will be able to 2-shot Zerglings rather than 3-shot them, which is a very significant damage buff. There is, however, a Bailing Nest right now coming up here as well for the South Korean Zerg. We do have an attempt over here. Is there enough for Protoss to actually hold on? Shield Battery Overcharge is no more. Oracles are not present in the right position at this point in time. And this is one of those random timing attacks here that SHIN likes to go for. Forcing those Adepts off his back and, well, maybe scouting out that Zealots are being produced, which is a little bit funky. There is a second Evo chamber. It could be Missile. Okay, yeah, it is Missile. I thought for a second it was going to be like double upgrade for melee units, so maybe like a rush to Ultras. Not the case. It'll be what seems to be Hydraling Bane here. A full damage composition from SHIN with very little survivability. Fourth Nexus, by the way, does start up as well. In that, well, relatively safe position. There's an area over here that you have to worry about, and then some change over here. I don't really know if they've made any adjustments to the maps, by the way. Probably not. I honestly don't know how they decide what maps are on the map pool. Like, I'm fairly sure it's just the guy at Blizzard. And he's like, yo, this is the new map pool. I don't know. I have no clue who's in charge of the map design and which maps are going to be on the ladder and which ones aren't. Anyways, we have a little push here. Zealots, additional ones are being warped in. A couple of Archons already at the front as well to soak up some of that damage. There's not as many Queens available as there would have been in the previous patch. Only 6. And this is a scary attack, man. Yeah. There's a lot of drones hiding up north. Keep in mind that Protoss in the meantime has got quite the economy himself too. I think we should have produced a round of Banelings here, because we have the Baneling Nest, but he's not really using it. Those Zealots are going to have a grand old time though if their drones are going to go back to mining. Queens in the front trying to, yeah, I guess tank some of the damage so the Hydras and maybe the Zerglings can aid a little bit, but this has already been a good attack here from MaxPax, who is leaving his Zealots mostly behind. But he snatched the Archons up, and most of this Protoss army will not go home, but they've already done a lot of damage. He wants more Zerglings, though. A little bit of juggling. Okay. Dude, honestly, looking at the changes, right? So, a lot of the changes are going to require experimentation, but I've got a feeling this is going to be a really nice setup overall for MaxPax. Like, MaxPax already rarely loses Protoss versus Zerg. He only really loses Protoss versus Terran against Clem. I think both of those matchups are going to be slightly easier. Like, not that much. It's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think across the board, a lot of those small adjustments, since we're already thinking about like a 50-50 advantage maybe for MaxPax in the previous patch, maybe he can actually start pushing Clem a little bit more to the limit for those online cup victories. Like, in my mind, I think going into this over the next couple of weeks into any series, I'm going to be favoring MaxPax for pretty much any scenario. I guess we'll have to find out for this series, but I do think MaxPax is a bit of a monster. +2 melee coming up, +2 missile currently researching. We have Overlord speed as well. SHIN is ready to send some of the units towards the other side of the map. 2 Hydras, and then a whole lot of Zerglings. Oh, if he could find this prism, that would be massive. SHIN, sadly for him, oh, wow. How did he just find that? Very quick reaction speed as well by the South Korean Zerg, and that is a big win. It's gonna make life a little bit easier. Those Lynx and those Hydras, though, can put in a lot of work. They're already ready to unload in the middle of that mineral line. There's the Fleet Beacon coming up. One thing I would really like to see from MaxPax, as he does see the Zealot drop, or with the Zealots rather, he does see this drop coming in, which is really nice. One thing I would love to see from MaxPax is experimentation without actually transitioning towards SkyToss. Maybe a couple of Tempest and a couple of flying units, but across the board, I would love to see him make just a mothership with a ground-based army. Curious to see how Zerg players would deal with that. Because it seems to me that Corruptors need to come out against the Mama ship. And I think that's actually what Max is going for here. So he scouted that. There is, however, still a very large number of Zerglings and Hydras and Banelings maneuvering around this side of the map. The Stasis Ward did catch the Banes that were running on over in this direction. They're still going to be rallied into the mineral line, I'm sure. That can deal a bunch of damage. Storms, though, need to be used over here. Another big storm on that shield battery. Good Stasis Wards and MaxPax. Ay, 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 ay. Do you have enough units, man? Like, I was actually very concerned about the fight, but you're making that look good. We did have the shield battery, or not the shield battery, the energy ability being used on the High Templar. Ultimately, SHIN does still kill the base. 14 probes are going down as well in the natural expansion. More of the probes fell over at the 4th base too. And what I thought was going to be a really tough defense because this map is so wide open, turned out to be the case. It's very tricky here for Max, who now recalls from the low ground up towards the high ground. Another storm goes down. Mama ship is on the horizon, and obviously this tech has been rather greedy here from MaxPax. A lot of resources go into the fleet beacon, into the mothership, random void ray, right? Like, he spent a lot of resources here on things that weren't army. And SHIN is somebody who punishes you for that immediately. Now we have a full Skytools transition. By the way, one thing to note, something in addition to the previously announced mothership changes, is that the mothership is back to its original size. So this is the mothership size that it used to be for like 14 years. And then they made it slightly smaller. And now it's back again to its original size, which feels right to me, man. I think this is better. Yeah. She's now a big mama ship. She deserves it. Let's see. This Baneling drop is not going to achieve much. Good interaction there. In the meantime, we do have the Mama ship using its cloaking ability. Time Warp goes down as well. Those Archons have been worth their weight in gold, but many of them have still gone down. No energy anymore for Storm, I don't think, but the Protoss army itself might just be able to hold. I think Max is being a little bit too greedy with those fleet beacon transitions. We saw that as well in the PTR, where he would be caught off guard against these random timing attacks that SHIN likes to go for. Maybe he will still be fine, but he's already taken a lot of damage. Hydra Corruptor, by the way, is going to be the name of the game here for SHIN. Smart man. The greatest unit composition of them all. As he is forced to now go back again to at least a little bit of droning. He did take that base in the center too. We have an infestation pit. Okay, MaxPax trying to stabilize. He's very far behind economically, and he doesn't really have an army that can do much. Like, he can move across the map, but it's risky, man. King's Cove is large, a lot of terrain to cover, and it would mean that you're leaving your bases exposed to counterattacks, and that's exactly what SHIN is thinking about too, as he is now ready to send in a large number of links into any of these bases. Nexus comes up now in the middle. Easy snipe here for SHIN if he sees it. He's got a run by from the north, a run by from the south. This one will go onto the Nexus itself. And you know what? With +2 melee, those links don't mess around. Shield battery overcharge is no more, so that is indeed a possibility. Nice snipe right there by the Zerg. That is shoving MaxPax more and more all in. He's got a decent army, but not really one that is amazing. Resources lost twice. Quite heavily in favor of the Protoss player, but Zerg has been mining a lot more. He decides to give up on that base. I don't hate it. He does now see, I think, the base in the middle. Does he see it? Yeah, he does get a glimpse of it. That's a nice tell. If he can cancel that base, MaxPax is all in. Like, I don't think he can really do much anymore. Is there enough, though, for the Zerg player to get the job done here? It does not look like it. Those Zealots are going to be more than okay. +2 air weapons, by the way, is done here for Max, which is a really large power spike, especially for carriers. We only have 3 of them, but obviously they carry 8 interceptors each. MaxPax not entirely sure if he can walk onto creep, decides to go home. The rest of the Zerglings has now arrived, though, and can he kill the Nexus this time around? He will. Mothership comes in with the cloak ability. Probably should have recalled her instead, and then activated the cloak. That would have saved that Nexus 100%. Maybe not something that Max was considering, but something that would have worked out in his favor. And now suddenly we're 15 minutes in. Protoss is just on 2 bases. Those 2 bases, though, are running very low. That means that long-distance mining is really the only play. He restarts the 3rd, fair enough. We have a couple Zealots inside of the main base as a distraction. Few Zealots run into the natural expansion of the Zerg player too. It's not like SHIN really has a ton of mineral fields either. He did, well, retake that Nexus, or that Zerg Nexus on the right side of his bases. Drones are dying in the main base as well as in the natural. Nah. Let's see. Yeah, he's marching around. He is marching around. Trying his best to get something done here. But ultimately, MaxPax is doing that strategy that we recently saw Cure do with Terran, right? Where he basically stopped making probes, and he's given up on economy entirely. And he's essentially just trying to make, like, I don't know, 170 or so army supply here. Because I haven't seen a probe for a little bit. Maybe he's been sprinkling a couple of them out, but he's mostly just marching around. So one of the big changes to the Mama ship is that she's no longer abductable. The rest of the Protoss army, though, can be abducted. +1 air weapon starts up, +2 carapace starts up. This is SHIN basically just playing this as safe as possible. MaxPax is trying to make a bulldozer army where he can just rush across the map and kill everything. That's the goal here. That's all we're really trying to do. He does start up a 4th base again. No probes. Just 56 workers. And more damage. If Zerg loses this, that would be quite a frustrating one for him, actually. Because he's been playing this really well. This is feeling like a nigh unlosable game right here for Zerg. But this is exactly where I was also a little bit concerned, right? What I was trying to highlight earlier. Of course, I don't know who ends up winning this. I haven't seen the series. But this is every, like, ladder hero, like every Zerg ladder hero's worst nightmare, you know? When Protoss is just sort of darting around the map and they're just making that army and you know they're gonna come across. And you know that Serral would be able to hold it with some really nice spellcaster micro. But now that you can't really abduct any of these units very easily anymore, it does become a lot more difficult. SHIN decides to just play this as safely as he can. He's building some Spore Crawlers. Spore Crawlers are now 300 HP rather than 400. But they also deal more damage. So they're easier to kill, but they have more DPS, meaning that MaxPax does need to commit into those fights. It is done to try and discourage a little bit of turtling, but I think in this instance it is a good call by SHIN. MaxPax trying to find a bit of a chokehold here on this base. Trying to come in from an angle that is not expected. Keep in mind that feedback is obviously still available. We should definitely see feedback. There we go. Oh. +3 is not gonna finish here. A lot of DPS in this Protoss army. In the meantime, the Zerglings once more will try to get some damage done over here. MaxPax may be thinking about taking that base. Cloaking Field gets activated to move up towards the high ground. Natural expansion of MaxPax just got demolished. Corruptors are coming up. A nice abduction there. Carrier slightly mispositioned. Oh no. There's a lot of Corruptors coming though. This is SHIN with that big economy advantage that he had, at least for the majority of this game. That's where he smashed his piggy bank. This is essentially, though, just a one-time remax here from Zerg. So far, this first engagement went pretty horribly for the Zerg player. But at least now he's got Hydroling Bane Corruptor with Vipers for support. Big Zealot, Archon, and 1 Stalker push on the right side of the map too. That's going to be able to take care of any of these outer bases easy peasy. In the meantime, +3 air weapons, by the way, is coming up. +3 ground weapons is coming up. How is MaxPax still in this game? We should probably get out of here, man. Losing the carrier is suboptimal. It is, however, distracting some of these Protoss units. Yeah, MaxPax carves a bit of a path here. Corruptors. He needs to, like, do a big pre-split and try to collapse from multiple angles on this Protoss army. But this is one of those weird situations where we have a tier 3 Protoss bull going up against what looks to me like a mid-game Zerg bull. It's just that none of the late-game Zerg units are very useful in these type of fights. Maybe a round of Brute Lords could be good, but Nice storms here by the Templar. We have more Zealots, though, going around the site. MaxPax controlling the battlefield brilliantly, despite falling pretty far behind previously. Here we go, though. This is the fight that SHIN has been looking for the entire time. He decides to jump on top of all of those units, but that means that the Archons and the splash damage here from the Protoss army is maximized. Oh, and this, well, I guess visualizes what I was trying to highlight as a concern of mine. Despite SHIN pulling very far ahead earlier on at the beginning of this game, it's MaxPax who miraculously brings it back and wins game number 1. Brilliant game right there from MaxPax. Really playing that to the new patch's advantage, right? Reading the patch notes, looking at the changes, and that decided the playstyle that he ultimately ended up going for. Considering, though, that he lost his 4th and his 5th over and over and over again, and Zerg in the meantime was mining comfortably on the other side of the map. I really thought that that was gonna go SHIN's way, but it wasn't supposed to be. Look, I'm a little bit concerned, and you can quote me on this in a couple months from now, okay? I'm a little bit concerned that Zerg versus Protoss is going to evolve into a matchup where Zerg is gonna try and win in the mid-game or die trying. I'm a little bit afraid that because Zerg doesn't have the best anti-air available, other than the Corruptor, I guess, the Hydra is very mediocre, that a lot of Zerg players will desperately try to win the game before it ever goes to distance, especially on the ladder. I've got a feeling the vast majority of the ladder heroes out there, like people below the pro level, there's a very good chance that your best chances of beating Protoss are to win in the mid-game or die trying. That surround was so good as well from SHIN in the final engagement of that previous game, right? But he killed very small amounts of Protoss while losing everything in the meantime. Okay, well now we're on Whispers of Gold. This is one of the brand new maps. MaxPax probably feeling a little bit dirty after that previous game, but he honestly did play that out pretty much perfectly. Yeah. We did see a buff, I guess, to Microbial Shroud from the Infestor. The thing is, and this seems to be a bit of a disconnect between, well, maybe the Balance Council, although I'd be very surprised because the Balance Council generally understands the game really well, but buffing Hydralisks against Skytals is not really what you need so much. It's a bit of a funky disconnect because the Hydras generally don't die to carriers, they don't die to Tempest, they don't die to the Mothership. They die to the rest of the Protoss army. They die to, for example, Zealots, to Archons, to Psionic Storm. So even though the Hydras technically have an easier time weathering the damage from, like, Interceptors, that's not really the unit that generally kills them. Yeah, you can pre-split, you can negate a lot of damage that way, but honestly, MaxPax played that out really well and stormed his way to success. Maybe one option that SHIN did have in the previous game, rather than going Corruptors, and I've been wondering about this, I think it needs a little bit more experimentation, is to go double upgrades for melee, and then for Carapace as well, right? So you go for quick Ultras, Ultra into Hydra into Infestor. There was a time and place where Zerg players were experimenting with, when the Microbial Shroud was first introduced, with Ultra, Hydra, Infestor. Since the Ultras can clear out all the units on the ground, it can be very effective. Now, when that first popped up, Protoss players realized that their best approach, as we do, by the way, have a little bit of build order variety. MaxPax going into a really quick robo facility here after a Twilight Council, so no Stargate, which is a little bit weird. I would go Stargate 100% of the time, especially on this new patch. Are we gonna go... Okay, yeah, we're gonna go Glaive to Depth. Anyways, when Protoss players first started facing off against Ultras, they very quickly realized that their very best weapon against the Ultralisk would be the Immortal. If you don't play Immortals against Ultras, you just sort of lose everything on the ground in like 2 seconds, because the Ultras actually do tear you apart. And then obviously when the entire ground army has disappeared... Oh? Really, SHIN? We're doing a drone rush? Okay, I'll shut up about it. This is the way we're gonna try and win? Oh my lord, we're actually just doing a drone push now? Well, cheese or die trying is what I was trying to say earlier. The drones actually move commanded. They mineral walk through it. The sentry should go down here before it can even throw a force field. He didn't have energy on the Nexus to use that energy overcharge ability. So SHIN actually just broke open the main base. Since there's no Stargate built and there's no oracles, I think MaxPax actually just loses here. Oh my god. This is an all-in that I haven't seen in some time. Very unpopular at the highest level, but I guess it can be done. Well then, we find ourselves on Amygdala. That's so funny. Of all the builds I expected to come back in this patch, that wasn't really on my list. But maybe I shouldn't be too surprised. I'm so busy talking about Ultralisks and Hydras and maybe Microbial Shroud that I didn't even really pay attention. Ooh. Oh, they changed the rocks. Oh my god, I've never seen these things before. Look at that. Those are some big-ass tentacles. Ew. I think Drone Rush would have been, or maybe like a hatchery block would have been nice. Yo, these rocks definitely did not look like this. We had rocks all over the place. Now we have little baby Overminds to block expansions, man. Remember the Overmind? This is him now. A little bit sad. Okay, so long story short, I think maybe Ultralisk, Hydra, Infestor could be a viable composition for Zerg, since the Immortal now deals slightly less damage compared to what it used to in the past. That's all I wanted to say, man. SHIN, yeah, he abruptly cut me off in that previous game. But I think it may be worth a little bit of experimentation. We'll see. By the way, I think these may be the different types of rocks. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that at some point, the map makers were experimenting with rocks that would basically break down at a certain point in time. So I actually have to pay attention. Do these things have health bars? We'll have to see when the Overlord gets close. It's kind of a cool idea. Yeah. So they are slowly breaking down. So the idea behind this is that as time goes by, I think this is going to be at this rate at like minute 8 or so, whatever. As time goes by, these rocks will break down. You can already attack them, you can already kill them right now, but it means that the entire middle section of the map is going to be much more easily accessible even when you don't destroy any of the other rocks. Honestly, an underrated map design feature, and even though these tentacles are really creepy to me, it is really cool to see. I don't know what happens, like say you build a hatchery over here and you built like a creep tumor next to it or something. I don't really know if they would keep alive. I'm assuming they're gonna continue bleeding out. This does kind of look like a Zerg structure though, so maybe because it's off creep, it is slowly bleeding out? I wonder if you can just drop down a creep tumor. I don't think there's any real strategic implication for it, but it is interesting. Alrighty. Stargate here, coming up for MaxPax. I think if in the previous game, by the way, he decided to open up Oracle, he would have been A-okay. So it was a very risky play from SHIN. Imagine with that base defense, rather than there being a sentry, we would have an Oracle up in the air instead. I mean, last time I checked, drones and Zerglings aren't great at killing flying units. Let's see. Metabolic boost is going to finish up. The first 2 adepts have come in. A little bit ambitious here by Max, not gonna lie. I think he's diving a bit too deep with these adepts. Gonna be able to keep at least one of it alive for now, but it is a little bit risky. This is, by the way, the map with the giant planet over here on the... yeah. Actually, I think in the PTR version of the map kind of continued here. We have like this giant wall here now on the right side. Maybe they've like tightened the outside of the map a little bit, so maybe there's less dead space on the outside. Interesting. Yeah, you can still see the planet over here. I feel like there was more room on the right side of the main base. Anyways, Oracle gets pushed back for now. No kills on it yet. Third Nexus, though, is building. In the meantime, on the other side of the map. And Will we see another big push from SHIN? No, it doesn't look like it. Another option, I guess, would be like a queen push or something along those lines. Even though queens are a little bit trickier to play now since they're 175 minerals rather than the 150 they used to be. I do think you can probably still make a queen march work in one way or another. For the most part though, SHIN seems to be macroing up. I would like to see another macro game between these two. But I am noticing a little bit of urgency, right? Like, MaxPax is more than keen to just chill and sit back and slowly max out. Whereas SHIN is like, gotta end it soon. It is funny how the tides have turned though. For the longest time, back in the day at least, we did have a very similar setup. But then for Protoss, where Protoss needed to be the ones that would win the game before Zerg would get to a maxed out state. Zergs would turtle up pretty bad. Obviously, we've seen multiple iterations of that. Way back, I guess that was that Brute Lord Infestor meta. That was pretty much impossible for Protoss to beat. Seems like now the ball is in the Protoss' court. Obviously, just my initial impressions, but that is the vibe I'm getting so far. I'd like to be proven wrong. It's gonna be charged first again here by MaxPax. Very curious. Charge, yeah, it's basically an identical game to what he did in the first one of this series. He's gonna go Archon Zealot again with +1 ground. He followed that up with a relatively fast 4th base. Yep. And then when the 4th base got finished, he added on a fleet beacon. And he slowly proceeded to get up towards a maxed out Skytles type of army. Now, the main vulnerability is when he's midway towards that Skytles army, right? Like when you don't have the Mama ship out yet, but you've made the investment into a fleet beacon and all the rest of it. Fleet beacon is 300 minerals, 200 gas. It's expensive. There is certainly a chance that we are going to be seeing a similar approach once again from MaxPax, but maybe some minor changes. Slightly more defensive, for example, or maybe slightly less deep onto creep. To try and, yeah, make that transition towards the late game army a bit more straightforward. Zergling, by the way, sees a lot of this coming in, which is nice. SHIN is going good old Roach Hydra. Baby's first unit composition. Good old Roach Hydra. It's not very strong offensively, but it can still certainly be great defensively. 4th Nexus, by the way, has been spotted now, so this is something that SHIN can take into consideration. Yeah, he's making a lot of army. I think that's probably his play. There is a revelation, by the way, so MaxPax will see that some of those Zerg units are headed down south. That means that he is now also headed down south. He's going into Storm. Couple of Zealots ready to run by. Look at the worker count right now, by the way. 82 probes. As indeed 8 minutes into the game, that thing goes down. 82 probes versus 69 drones. Or as SHIN would say, nice! Sorry. This is MaxPax effectively being the Zerg. So this looks to me like it's SHIN trying to do a mid-game timing attack. Or die trying. Contamination, by the way, on the Templar Archives. That does mean that Storm is not going to finish anytime soon, but honestly, it's not even close to finishing in the first place. Shield battery, photon cannon, all of it should go down quickly. The Hydras have already killed one of those Oracles. And similarly to what we saw in the first game of the series, yeah, SHIN hits once again by denying the 4th base. This seems to be the general gist of his strat when he's playing like a macro game right now. Try to prevent that 4th base to the best of your call, because if you can't, like, you're gonna go up against that late game army and life becomes really tricky. This is a low economy though from Zerg. He hasn't quite done enough damage yet, despite killing that entire expansion. Killing some of these units would be really nice as well. You know what, he might just have enough stuff to just straight up break through all of this. MaxPax stacking up, getting double upgrades, doing the whole thing. It would have worked great if Zerg didn't do anything, but good old Roach Hydra, just like back in 2010, gets the job done. Ooh. We find ourselves on Ultra Love, and Ultra Love has got a bit of a different vibe. I don't remember seeing such... Oh, interesting. It's the red side of the map, I guess, and then the blue side of the map. Yeah. I don't remember seeing such vibrant lines all around the Nexus. Curious. Yeah, it changes over here. So the halfway point is apparently these bridges, and I guess some of the ramps in the other areas. That is the brightest red I've ever seen in any game of StarCraft, huh? Yeah, yeah. If you have a dog, I'm pretty sure you can watch this game now. My cats will probably be able to navigate this map 24/7. They will have no problems. Yeah, I think this patch will probably initially be all about Protoss navigating whatever all-in Zerg is gonna go for. We're gonna see some of the old all-ins return once more. We'll have to find out what SHIN decides to cook up this time around. Now, if anybody can figure out what the best response, now that shield battery overcharge is gone, what the best response to that is, it's probably MaxPax. There's a very good chance that as I speak, MaxPax is playing games right now, trying to figure that exact thing out indeed. But some of those early game builds from Protoss will have to change. You can't just lean into shield battery overcharge nearly as easily anymore. Like those big double upgrades, right? Like charge first, but then not really getting anything done with it, and then on delayed like Templar Archives into Storm. Like all of that is nice if the Zerg player allows you to get away with it, but it's probably best to either play full defense or full offense, but not like that in-between road, you know, where MaxPax kind of made an attack, but then he didn't really commit to it, and then he ultimately tried to move across, but he didn't really do... Like, that was just a little bit of mediocrity. I think if he would have committed one way or the other, it would have been a much easier game for him to play, but it's clear that SHIN has got his eyes set on whatever the fourth base is going to be. That seems to be a theme in the Zerg's gameplay. Let the Protoss do whatever he wants on 2 bases, whatever he wants on 3 bases. But when the fourth comes out, that's when he strikes. Okay. All of the previous 9 maps, by the way, are gone. So we've had 9 maps in the StarCraft 2 map pool now for some time. Used to always be 7. We switched over to 9 relatively recently, although recently in StarCraft terms. Entire esports scenes have come and gone since we had, you know, that change, but I think Ultra, not new version. Oh, really, SHIN? MaxPax says yes, it's okay. Really? So they're using... Okay, so, like, as I'm casting this particular series got played just a few hours ago, which is when the new multiplayer balance patch went live. Now, there was this weird period, at least during the night for me, over here in the Netherlands, where Blizzard updated the game, and they didn't actually, like, fix a bunch of issues. So for a couple hours, there were only 6 maps in the ladder map pool. Nobody knows why, and then they added a couple of new ones. All of the maps that they did use on the ladder for a couple hours were also like the LC edition. LC rather than LE. LC stands for ladder candidate. It's like the non-finalized version of the map. This is the LE edition of the map, so it should technically be the final version of the map. Albeit one where maybe they can still have some bug fixes if they absolutely need it, but... Did Blizzard accidentally upload the wrong version of the map? I guess SHIN and MaxPax must have spotted something that is a little bit off. It could also be that this is the most recent version of the map. But it's different than the one that was on the PTR. Now, I wouldn't put it behind... Like, there's a very good chance, let me put it like this, that Blizzard did accidentally upload the wrong version of the map. Because they've done it before, and sometimes those maps are out there for, well, months. Let's just say that Blizzard is not particularly communicative in 2024, and they're not really doing a very good job improving it either. Very frustrating as a StarCraft fan, but anyways. Adepts do shade in now. Curious to see if Max is once more gonna go charge lots on the back of this, by the way. He does have Twilight Council and Forge done right now. Good bit of damage done here by the Protoss player. Oracles sneak over here. There's still one Adept inside of the main base. Yeah, this time around, we're gonna go for the more conventional approach. It'll be Blink together with the +1. Lair coming up. Shin is going to try and put a little bit of pressure onto this base. Now, the Oracles should be able to kill this easy peasy. Yeah. But at the very least, the Oracles are home. And I guess that's the most important thing right here for Shin. Dude, I kind of do like the red outline, though. It's very powerful, but it does look pretty. Does it look too pretty? Is it too bright? I don't really mind bright maps, but it is looking very evil. Like, these are the normal Protoss skins, but they do look like the Alarak ones. This is the Tal'Darim Rim color scheme at the very least. Okay, different approach here from Max. So Max is not going Storm, he's not going Archons. Instead, we're going Stalkers into Colossi. I liked it. Yeah, I think it's a good call. I think it's more defensive and not something that relies on, like, your Storm upgrade finishing at the perfect time so much. Shin, by the way, going 67 workers. He is building a 4th base. And he is going Infestation Pit, but we're doing a different flavor of attacking. This could be Swarm Hosts. If he queues up a couple Overlords, it is possible. It could also just be like a Roach Nidus all-in type of thing, though. There is some vision over here inside of the main. This is when the Stalkers decide to commit. This map actually has a lot of character. I don't mind it. It's cool. It is Swarm Host. Okay. Man, we're seeing so much build order variety here from Zerg. Shin is feeling like he needs to change his strat every game. And I don't mind it, man. This is that fun time when a patch is fresh where nobody really knows how to play. Or what the quote-unquote perfect way to play is. I always like it. I've oftentimes wondered what it would be like if the game was always like that, you know? Where we just get a new map pool every month, or every 2 months, or every 3 months, or whatever, and you're always kind of playing these fresh games. It would change the dynamic of StarCraft a lot. We do have a nice little attack over here. The Swarmos, in the meantime, though, are up north. And they will try and see if they can... Oh, don't let them. Okay, if they can go after the probes. I think the Colossus is still going to be a fantastic play here, though. He's trying to see if he can get the Nexus itself. Obviously, there's no shield battery overcharge, but I don't think there's enough damage per second in this Locust, army, so... Shield battery used by the Nexus right there to get that overcharge ability done. It did not quite achieve the job, and... Okay. I think 3 months would be good. For like a map pool change. So right now we're getting a new map pool change like every maybe 6-7 months or so. I would love to see like 9 new maps, maybe some old, maybe some new. Every like 3 months or so. I think that would be nice. Okay, push comes in. Colossus is being hunted, but now close enough to the shield battery. Good control right there by Max. So far, not really taking a lot of damage from the Swarm Host at all, and that means that the Protoss army count is growing quickly. Once Protoss gets up to about 100 army supply, so currently it's at 87. Wow. Okay. Well, generally they will dominate the map as soon as they go up to 100 supply, and Shin, he realizes that he is not getting anything done with these attacks. Brilliantly controlled by MaxPax. And that means that this is going to be our final game for today. We find ourselves on El Dorado. This was my favorite map on the PTR. Don't know if they've made any adjustments. At least there's no strong LEDs that immediately blind me. This is the map with the... Oh, look, we have actually skinny little golden mineral fields. These used to be blue mineral fields, but I guess they were visually a little bit confusing. I think this is just to distinguish them a little bit better from these blue mineral fields over here that are actually part of the base. So this reminds me a lot of Golden Wall. It's basically Golden Wall. I actually don't know. Do we have a Wikipedia page for this yet? El Dorado. Do we have a... Is it made by Superman? It's not! Golden Wall... Wait, Golden Wall was made by Superman, right? Yes, it was. There's another map maker called Eclipse who made El Dorado, but it's essentially the same layout as Golden Wall. Very similar. Couple of adjustments just to modernize it a little bit, but very similar vibe. Well, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta take what worked, make it slightly better, roll with it again. So Golden Wall had a rush distance of 37 seconds. This map has a rush distance of 34 seconds. Golden Wall was 168 by 140 squares. This map is 156 by 120. So there are some... Yeah, it's basically a slightly smaller version of Golden Wall. Yeah, Golden Wall is a little bit of a wider map. I like this layout a lot. I think this is probably, as far as modern StarCraft goes, this is probably my favorite layout. So what I like about it is that you can sort of choose where you want to play the game. Say, for example, MaxPax, he could take this expansion over here, and then this one, and then that one right over there. The bottom section of the map will only be accessible in a couple different ways. Well, first off with flying units. Secondly with like a prism or like an overlord drop. But most commonly we will see these skinny mineral fields being mined out, which is exactly... Thanks for the cue, SHIN. These mineral fields only require 2 trips for a worker. You can mine them out pretty quickly, and then take the bottom section of the map. When the golden base over here runs out, you can mine it from that side, you can mine it from this side as well. When that runs out, you have another entrance into the rest of the map. Same for the skinny mineral fields over here in the middle of the map. You can mine those out, and you can get very easy access to the bottom of the map too. But there's this interesting decision that you have to make, you know? It's not like your third base is like, for example, like Ghost River, previous map pool. You only really have 1 third base option. On this map, you have like 7. It feels like you have about 7 anyways. MaxPax has to scout around the corner. Looks like SHIN actually did not quite mine the correct mineral field. And Max, because of it, decides to go for a Void Ray first. Okay. Yeah, as far as StarCraft map design goes, I think this is one of the best ways to do it. We've got so many cool maps. That's kind of the thing that confuses me a little bit. So like, say you're a StarCraft 2 map maker, right? So this is a very competitive atmosphere to be in. There's a lot of map makers out there. There's map tournaments that are being played where there's like prize pool for the map makers, but also there's like a jury contest. Like there's a lot, right? There's like pro gamers that actually play the maps. There have been a bunch of maps now that have gone through like a 4-month selection process. They had a jury, they had the community, they had pro gamers decide which one was the best for the entire event. You go through this entire thing, and then Blizzard puts some of the old maps from 2000, and you don't know why. Like, there's no communication there. So even though I personally like that they're doing a full map refresh and we have these old maps making a return, it's fun to see. It just confuses me a little bit that, like, you've won the competition, right? Like, your map is proven to be good. Then we don't, like, that's weird. It's a little bit... Double Stargate, by the way, for MaxPax. Ooh, okay. He is mixing it up right over here, too. I'm assuming we're gonna go into a fleet beacon, but we'll have to keep an eye out on all of this. There's an yeah, there's the fleet beacon. There's an overlord coming in over in this direction. And SHIN will now see this coming in from a mile away. Yep, he scouts that it's double Stargate. He sees the fast fleet beacon. That means he can go into a lair, and I would imagine aspire pretty much immediately. This is going to give SHIN quite a bit of time to prepare. Adepts try to shade in. And they're going to get picked up pretty quickly. Oracle. Or no, it's a Void Ray. Down south, trying to get some work done. Straight +1. Huh. It is curious. Yeah, it is curious. Even though I don't mind pro gamers being in charge of the balance in the form of a balance council, I honestly think it's working out quite well. I know there's a lot of people that have very strong opinions about it, but I honestly don't mind it. I do know that pro gamers, though, are very boring when it comes to map designs in general. Like, I feel like if it was up to pro gamers to design maps for StarCraft 2, we would still be playing Metalopolis and Scrap Station, you know? Like, we would still be playing Xel'Naga Caverns, like maps from 2010 or variations of the same theme. It would just be kind of like boring-ish. I like the idea of there being like maybe 2 councils, you know, like one that can do the map design and then one that can do... But some sort of change I do think needs to happen, like something with communication at the very least. So this is effectively a mothership rush right here from MaxPax. So MaxPax learned in the first game of this series that the Skytles late game was very hard to beat. Now Shindo sees it coming in from a mile away, and he's got time to prepare. He knows he's playing straight Skytles, but rather than going into Aspire, he decides to go into Hydras. And I'm not sure if I like Hydras, man. I feel like Hydras are... They're a good-ish unit, but they're not really... Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's fine. Again, it's not so much the Skytles units that are the problem, it's the units that are in front of it that will be the issue. So I think charge together with +1 is a really good idea here for Max. He will have a mineral dump. Just spend all of your gas on flying units. And then maybe do like a full mineral dump on Zealots. Well, looks like SHIN is actually going to go for what seems to be a Queen Hydra all-in. Curious, but I guess that can work. That's a lot of queens already, and he will show them right now to these carriers. Hello, wakey wakey, Max. Losing a carrier here to queens is kind of embarrassing, but he does indeed accidentally lose one. A couple of interceptors will also pay the price here. Not enough DPS coming out of these units. Transfusion is going to keep that alive easy. 4th base goes down on the low ground. I don't think MaxPax realizes what is hanging above his head right now. There's the Nidus Worm. The queens will be able to take the luxury route instead. The Hydras have to slither towards the other side. They have their ranged upgrade, +1 missile on the back of this. We do have muscular augments too. That is the speed improvement. These upgrades are not yet done, but here we go. MaxPax ready to go for what will... SHIN rather ready to go for what will effectively be an all-in. Couple of adepts here being annoying. I do love those. We do have another Nidus Worm here in the front trying to keep all of this alive. So let's see. How good is this new setup for Protoss defensively? Cloak gets activated. There's currently no detection available. Those units are not really capable of hitting the Mama ship very well. Overseers are coming across the map right now, but it looks like MaxPax has managed to catch his opponent off guard. He just doesn't have that many units. Here's Charge finishing up, though. +1, not far behind. That is a really nice DPS improvement. All MaxPax really needs to try and do is buy time. I don't think there's really much of a follow-up. SHIN is even going for Spore Crawlers right now on the other side of the map. Okay. Here we go. Charges forward. A lot of the Queen energy is being used. That Archon stays alive for now. Queens, yeah, trying their best. That Stasis Ward is helpful. Keep in mind, no storms, none of that. This is a good fight, though. This is a really nice fight right here for MaxPax. I think that's about the best he's going to get. Pushing a lot of those Zerg units against that ramp. 6 kills already on the Mama ship itself, and he just smashed that Zerg army. Wow, that actually went way better for Protoss than I thought it was going to be. Like, that didn't even look close. Keep in mind that MaxPax also lost one of the carriers for free on the other side of the map. Well, ultimately it's the Protoss player who wins the series 3-2. Yeah, I think we've all learned that Hydras are not the best anti-air option. Microbial Shroud would have been good here, I guess. But if you go Microbial Shroud with this, there's no way that you can really go for this push at the correct time, because then the follow-up is going to hit with Storm, right? Because you would have to make an Infestation Pit, and in the meantime, MaxPax can get his 4th base up and going, get the extra gases going, so he'd be fighting Storm, and I don't think that attack would ever work.